Good evening. I am Anitra Steele, the chair of the Forums Committee. I want to welcome you to our forum for House Districts 25, 26, and 27, and Senate Districts 7 and 9 for the November election. These districts are all in Jackson County. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kansas City, Clay, Platte, and Jackson County. The League of Women Voters is a trusted grassroots, nonpartisan organization whose members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we neither endorse or oppose candidates or political parties, we are directly involved with sharing the important issues. Our mission is to empower voters and defend our democracy. We envision a democracy where every citizen has the knowledge, the right, the desire, and the confidence to vote. Our membership is open to everyone. I'd like for you to know the other league members volunteering with me tonight. Stephanie Revels is our timekeeper, and our Zoom is monitored by Laura Mountjoy. The public has sent in the questions via the League's website, lwvkc.org. This forum will be recorded, and available on the League's website, lwvkc.org, and on YouTube. Tonight, we welcome our moderator, Elizabeth Darr, a member of the League's Forum Committee.
Thank you, Anitra. I'm delighted to join you for this candidate forum. We have a full house tonight with candidates running for both the State House and the State Senate. Missouri state representatives and senators work alongside the governor to create laws and establish a state budget. Responsibilities include passing bills on public policy matters, setting levels for state spending, raising and lowering taxes. They can also vote to uphold or override gubernatorial vetoes. Our state representatives are limited to 4 two-year terms. State senators serve for 2 4-year terms. This forum will last approximately 90 minutes. I'll ask each question of the candidates in a randomly selected order. The questions have been submitted by the public. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to respond to each question and 2 minutes for a closing statement. All of the candidates running for these districts have been invited, and nearly all are here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Candidates, please answer the question asked and stick to the topic. There will be no rebuttals, but you may go back to an issue during your 2-minute closing remarks. So let's get started. The first question is going to go to Patty Manser. Please introduce yourself, tell us your education and background, and most importantly, what are your 3 top priorities when serving in the state legislature?
Thank you so much. I appreciate the League of Women Voters. Thank you for having this forum tonight. So I'm Patty Manser, and I'm running for the Missouri House of Representatives in District 25, where I have lived for more than 30 years. I grew up in Missouri, and I attended public schools in Missouri. I earned a Bachelor of Journalism degree from the University of Missouri in Columbia and an MBA in marketing from UMKC's Block School of Business. I'm running for the Missouri House because I bring strong experience in public policy and have been engaged in civic initiatives in Kansas City for a number of years. So here are my 3 priorities. My first one is to advance legislation to expand child care options through a defined set of tax credits. There was legislation introduced last year that had strong bipartisan support and a lot of interest and energy from across the state.
Thank you. Next is Anthony Zarantanello. Will you introduce yourself and tell us your priorities, please?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Thank you for putting on this forum for everybody. My name is Anthony Zarantanello. I have studied music business with Berklee School of Music online. I have served in the military for 4 years as an Army Ranger. I am serving as a candidate for District 26, South Kansas City. It's been very abandoned. It's not taken care of. I've lived there for almost 10 years and it's just been going downhill. My 3 priorities are to make sure that people have money because everything is expensive right now. We need to cut spending hardcore. That's taxes, that's everything. Secondly, we need to protect our rights. The government has had a field day on people's rights and it's out of control. And we need to protect our rights. It's the foundational principle of government. And lastly, I want to destroy all of this socialist, Marxist baloney, all of it.
Thank
Those
you.
are all. Thank you.
Next, let's hear from Tiffany Price. Will you tell us your priorities and introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Tiffany Price. I am born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. I have been living in the Marlboro district for the last 4 years. My education background, I have an associate's arts. I am currently in school at UCM with a bachelor's in human development. And so outside of that, I'm a parent, and that's one of my other backgrounds. I have lived experience. My priorities is, of course, mental health, because I feel that if your mind is not right, then a lot of things won't work well. Also, education. For me, no matter where you live, no matter your zip code, you should always have the same equitable education. And then healthcare. If we want the people to be healthy, to be able to go to school and to go to work, then we need the proper healthcare in place. So those are my 3 priorities.
Thank you very much. Deron Black, what are your priorities?
Well, thank you for having me in this forum. And of course, I'm Deron Black. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. I ended up getting a GED actually from Northwest Regional Youth Center. So I've had a pretty bit or a little bit of a journey in my lifetime. But I went to UMKC and got 2 degrees from UMKC. I got a bachelor's in liberal arts. Also got a bachelor's in political science, and I also have a minor in economics. And my priorities are to make sure that 18th and Vine receives the attention that it needs from the state and that it is revitalized and used as a cultural asset for Missouri. I want to increase the GDP of Missouri by making sure that things like manufacturing and other elements are put back into the district. And I also want to make sure that school choice is utilized to better the education of all our students in Missouri.
Thank you. Barbara Washington, will you introduce yourself, please, and tell us your priorities?
Hi, I'm State Senator Barbara Ann Washington. I'm a lifelong Kansas City, Missouri resident, graduate of Kansas City Public Schools, Go Southwest. Like Patty Manser, I am a esteemed graduate of the University of Missouri Columbia School of Journalism in News Editorial, and I have a law degree from University of Missouri Kansas City and an MBA from Avila University. My 3 priorities have been pretty much what I've been doing since I've been in Jefferson City for 7 years. One is criminal justice reform with an emphasis on bettering our positions for juveniles. The second is increasing economic development through workforce and other economic opportunities, and ending the blight that we have in our community.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Joey LaSalle.
Yep. Hello, thank you for having me this evening. So I'm originally from Excelsior Springs, Missouri. I graduated from the University of Missouri with a double major. I double majored in finance and real estate with honors. I have my project management professional. I have a healthcare certification in financial management. And so I would say that all of this happened because of my 3 priorities, right? So when it comes down to it, I think that my background with economics and finance, so when you talk about taxes and the injustices of the personal property tax that occurred, I think that that's a top tier thing. I would say jobs are very important to the district. We've got to keep that the downtown and the district with lots of jobs and with, as a booming economic plan. And lastly, I would say crime. So I want to prevent crime and do everything in my power to do that.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Patty Lewis.
Good evening, and I just want to thank the league for holding this forum. You are so wonderful for organizing this. I am State Representative Patty Lewis, Democratic nominee for State Senate District 7. I was born and raised here in Kansas City. I'm a nurse by background. I spent most of my bedside nursing in the ICU. Prior to getting elected, I volunteered with many organizations like Jobs with Justice and Moms Demand Action. I've been serving in the House for the past 4 years. My 3 priorities are healthcare, including reproductive healthcare, mental health, gun violence prevention, and my 3rd priority is equal rights for all, including workers' rights, LGBTQ plus rights, and minority rights.
Thank you. So now our next question will go first to Anthony. Would you support an increase in the gas tax since our current tax is among the lowest in the country and our roads and bridges are in disrepair?
I would not. I'm going to stand firm on my positions of lowering taxes and cutting taxes. I do believe our roads are garbage right now, and it's not getting any better. We can throw as much money into it as we want, but if we don't realize that what we're doing to the roads aren't actually making it through one season, one winter, then it's a waste of money.
Thank you. Joey?
Yep. So I think that the gas tax is, it's kind of the issue with that is kind of what Anthony said, right? So everybody uses gas, everybody drives a car, or most people, or public transportation uses petroleum. So when you sit there and say, let's tax gas, it affects everyone. And so I have a problem fundamentally with that from an economics perspective, that the whole idea is to try and impact as little people as possible. So I think that taxing gas to improve roads is counterproductive. I think that we should tax other things, other luxuries, other revenue streams, rather than things that people use all the time.
Thank you. Barbara?
So we did vote on the gas tax in Jefferson City, and I did vote for it. While I am not a fan of taxing people for everyday usage, it is a use tax for those who use it, and you are allowed to file something on your taxes to get a partial refund. I am blessed that I did live for a year in high school in New Jersey, where the roads were much better because they had tolls. When you drive out in places in Kansas, once you get on the toll roads, those too are better. So we have to figure out a way to make our highways better. Tolls are not something that we have voted on. So the gas tax is the way that we can improve our roads. They're going to last for more than a year. Those of us who drive to Jefferson City and those of us aspiring to will realize that as you drive down I-70, you definitely need some new roads, especially when you get to the bridge at exit 115. So I support the gas tax because it supports good roads in Missouri throughout the entire state.
Thank you. Duran?
No, I wouldn't increase the gas tax. One of the things that we've seen happen with the Missouri budget over the past decade is that the increase in the Missouri budget has just gotten way too big. So trying to take more money into the government and not looking at other ways to actually get the roads to be better and to be more drivable, and looking at ways to, probably divert funds from other sources to make those roads better would be something that I would look into, as opposed to trying to implement another tax, which just end up being another burden on folks.
Thank you. Patty Lewis?
Yes, I did support the gas tax as state representative, because as you mentioned, our state has some of the lowest gas tax in the country. We must invest in our roads and bridges and our crumbling infrastructure. I am so pleased with President Biden in his Build Back Better infrastructure investment here in the state of Missouri. And I did support the expansion of I-70. And as Senator Washington mentioned, those aspiring to go to Jefferson City and those of us who take it every week, this is much needed investment.
Thank you. Patty Manser.
I would support and the gas tax. I think we have to invest in the infrastructure if we want commerce, if we want tourism. I-70 is a major artery that crisscrosses the country. And when you do leave Missouri, and to Senator Washington's point, you get on I-70 in Kansas, you're going to see a notable difference. We need roads in order to transport goods and people and children and families safely, and I do support it.
Thank you. And Tiffany Price.
Hi, yes, I would say I would support it. However, I think it would be we would need education on how to file those tax credits for people that will want to utilize it. And then also, because it is the lowest, in order for people not to be so upset about their cars being ruined by the potholes and things like that, if we have better roads, then that will lessen some of the cost that comes with the potholes and things like that. So that will help eliminate that problem with the people being so upset. So I think a little increase will not do harm.
Thank you. Our next question will go first to Barbara Ann Washington. We live in a changing world. How should Missouri elementary and secondary curricula be changed to prepare our students to function in this world?
I like this question. One, we should go back to the basics: reading, writing, and arithmetic, or as the old folks say, arithmetic without the A. We have missed out on the basics of how we have previously educated people, so that we have a world today where our children are less educated and less intelligent than previous generations. And I don't mean to offend anyone, or especially those who are younger than me. I'm almost Social Security age. So I think we need to incorporate some things that have been missing in public school to enhance education, such as art, such as music. Definitely a little bit more recess, and understand that our children cannot sit just for 8 hours and be taught to test. They must be taught to think. As a lawyer, I will say that I am in favor of the Socratic method. And I think that inspires children to think and would make them better overall in the outcome.
Thank you. Tiffany Price, what's your feeling about how education might be changed?
I agree with Senator. I think that it needs to be basics. We need more life skills. We need for kids to learn how to do the regular things so they can survive. STEM is a good thing. However, I know that we are moving forward with technology. So yes, of course, technology is a part of it. But if they can't take care of themselves at home, how would they be able to survive outside of that? So I think it needs to be a combination of things.
Thank you. Joey, where are you in education?
Yeah, so I actually agree. Let's get back to the basics, right? So let's get back to reading, writing, math, science. I think that we do need to incorporate new technologies. It's a growing technological world out there. So I do think that we need to enhance that. We need to create that part of the curriculum. And then I also think that the trades, right? So vocational, I think that we need to include that as a part of education as well, because it doesn't have to be just math and science and reading. It can be, let's figure out trades. There's good jobs out there for trades, and prepare these young adults or young leaders to be a part of functioning members of society.
Thank you. Patty Lewis.
Yeah, I think I do agree with some of the points that have come up with getting back to the basics and the trades. I think in addition to that, the number one thing we need to do is update how we're funding our schools. The foundation formula is out of date. We need to support our teachers. We have the lowest teacher pay in the country. And you know, we need to support our teachers to educate our students. I'm pleased to be a public school supporter and because of my record in the state house, I'm the only candidate in this race who has been endorsed by our teachers and educators, including AFT, Missouri NEA, Better Schools for Missouri, and Missouri State Teachers Association.
Thank you. Patty Mansour?
Yes, I think there's always room to improve curriculum, but I have to say, I think the state's curriculum is really solid. I understand that we need to double down on some basics, but if we only focus on the basics, we ignore what other surrounding districts, top districts, and neighboring states are doing. I think we need to enhance creative arts. Technology is critically important for jobs of today. I think opportunities for more real world experiences, practicum for young people is necessary. And we frankly need to enhance education on civics and government, which I had the benefit of when I was a youngin', but practically doesn't exist anymore because states don't test for it. We've gotten to a place where we teach what states test for, and we miss out on a lot of rich learning opportunity.
Thank you. Anthony?
Yeah, I'm gonna say I agree with most everything everyone in the room has been saying. We need to go back to the basics: reading, writing, arithmetic, math. I can't tell you how many times I've had to correct a cashier on my change, and it's just very disturbing that these are the same age people as I am. I had history, I had all the things I think I needed, but at the end of the day, if we're not holding these kids to the standards that they need to be at, then it doesn't matter what we teach them. If they're not learning it, then they're not going to take it outside of the school. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned that I think I need to mention is the sexualization in the classroom. I think there's no need for sexualization in the classroom. I don't care if it's art. I don't care if it's some sort of new age sex ed. It doesn't belong in the classroom. Let the parents teach their kids about sex.
Thank you. And Duran?
So the education is of our students and our children here in the state is, of course, it should be everybody's top priority. And unfortunately, we see that when you just look at the budget of Missouri, the second highest expenditure in the budget is, of course, for education. So when you see that the kids are not actually being educated, then you have to explore every single way that you can to figure out how we can get the students educated. And I believe that we should look at policies, of course, like school choice, that helps the parents be more in charge of how they want to see their children be educated. Because one of the things that I've seen personally is just like Anthony has said, in the public schools, we are starting to see the focus be completely off of education and into things that are involved with this whole introducing children to the LGBTQ agenda. All those things are just went off the board. So we have to get back to education and teaching kids how to think, just like Senator Washington said.
Thank you. Joey, you're up for the next question.
Sure.
Why do you support or oppose Proposition A, which would guarantee paid sick leave and a gradual raise in the minimum wage to $15 from the Missouri current minimum wage of $12.30?
Yep. So I'll start with a basics in economics. So although that I do appreciate this and I want everybody to have lots of money, I want them to make $25 an hour and I want them to have all kinds of sick pay. The brass tacks of it is that when we increase the price of those wages, the cost will also increase to the people. So just when we think that we're getting a $15 raise, or sorry, $15 an hour, you're going to actually pay for that on the other end. So for McDonald's worker, I'm going to use McDonald's. If they get paid $8, the burger now costs you $10. And so you're going to have to pay for that. And then you're going to have to pay for it with when somebody else says that they can go make that money at that other place. And so I think that then insurance will cost more, and then other things will cost more. So on its face, it seems good, but deep down in the economic hole, it's probably not worth what it is.
Thank you very much. Duran, what's your position on Proposition A?
So the reality in, economics 101, just like Joy was saying, is that the truth is that there is no minimum wage. The minimum wage is effectively zero, because if you can't get a job, then you don't earn an income. And one of the things that you see is that the minimum wage can increase. And basically what you've probably done is that you've drove other people out of business because they can't keep those, they can't handle those type of labor costs. So when you look at the small business community, and this is personal with me because that one of my first jobs was from a small business owner. If that small business owner would have had to pay me $15 an hour, there was no way I would have got the job. I wasn't even a teenager at the time. So being able to allow for those small business owners who actually make up the bulk of the labor positions that are out there, if we hold them to a $15 minimum standard for wages for their employees, then you're effectively driving them out of business.
Thank you. Barbara, what's your position?
I don't believe that that's going to drive anyone out of business. I don't think that we sit in Missouri, in Kansas City, Missouri, where we have a horrible affordable housing problem. $15 an hour won't even afford someone a decent 2-bedroom apartment. With respect to whether it's going to put folks out of business, I am a small business owner and I've never paid anybody less than minimum wage, and I would never intend to. The issue is corporate profits. One has to decide what their corporate responsibility is. Do they want to have workers that can get to work because you're making enough money to either buy a car, catch the bus, or however you're going to get there, have enough money to pay for daycare, which people who are making about $15 an hour likely have some of those things. Or you have to decide, do you want to just continue with corporate profits? With respect to not having jobs or whatever, it is clear that our minimum wage that has been rising recently has not affected unemployment, because Missouri is at the lowest unemployment that we have been at in over 2 decades.
Thank you. Anthony?
I would have to agree with mostly what Joey and Duran were saying. Essentially, the minimum wage is the ground floor. You raise that, you just raise everybody's prices. And then small businesses, I am a small business owner, and I don't know any time in the future that I'm going to be able to afford to hire anybody. And if the government tells me that I have to pay people at a certain minimum that I can't afford, well, if production gets to a point where I have to hire people and I can't afford it, I go out of business. That's a business that goes under because of the minimum wage. McDonald's, all these massive corporations, they'll be okay, and they'll hire the worst bunch of kids that can't do the job for $15 an hour, but they're going to get it, and then they'll get fired, and then they'll replace it with someone else, or they'll replace it with the kiosks that we keep seeing. So again, the little guy is still getting screwed over. Either it's the small business owner or it's the minimum wage worker. Either way, it's a bad deal.
Thank you. Patty Lewis?
Yes, I do support Proposition A. This is a personal issue for me. As an ICU nurse, I took care of many patients who were faced with the choice of paying their rent or paying for their prescription medication like insulin or antihypertensive medications, and ending up in the ICU, getting set back further and further behind financially. Families here in Missouri are struggling. I have been an advocate for working families. In fact, many years ago, I volunteered with Jobs for Justice for the statewide minimum wage increase a few years ago, and I have been an advocate for the Fight for 15. So yes, I do support Proposition A and working families.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Okay, there you go. I'm sorry. Yes, I do support it. However, I also support the sick pay leave, because a lot of people have to decide if something does come up, do they have to leave their job without pay or with pay? And so having paid leave to it is a plus. And then also $15 an hour, I would support it, but honestly, it needs to be more, because that's not enough to sustain anything. A kid can start at Target for $15 an hour. So if a kid can start at Target for $15 an hour, what is that doing for an adult that has more expenses? So I absolutely do support it.
Thank you. And Patty Manser.
You know, I think that Missouri families, a lot of them can't get ahead because they're being paid these low minimum wages. And there are people who are trying to raise children and take care of families on those wages. I don't see that as the kind of burden to employers. I think we've got to support people so they can maintain a decent living, they can maintain housing, they can take care of their families. And when they cannot do those things, we see other kinds of costs to society. And so it's really important to invest in the workers that we need and that we value, and make sure that they are stable. And by the way, just keep in mind that a lot of the Missouri's child care providers, they're making minimum wage. So we are leaning on them to care for our children at very low wages while we go off to take care of other employment. So this is an important issue.
Thank you. Patty Lewis, you'll be up first for the next question. Missouri has the 5th highest gun death rate in the country, according to a recent article in the Kansas City Star. More than half of these deaths are suicides. As a member of the legislature, what gun laws would you support?
Yeah, thank you for this question. This, as I mentioned, is a top priority for me. As an ICU nurse working in a trauma center, I took care of many patients who were victims of gun violence. And unfortunately, we couldn't save them all. And I was often comforting loved ones in the wake of a tragedy. So gun violence prevention and suicide prevention is a top issue for me. I have sponsored several common sense gun bills like red flag laws, safe, secure storage of weapons, and as well as Donna's Law, which is a self-select to be on a list not to be sold firearms. However, it must be noted that the priority and the solution by the majority party is to put guns everywhere, guns on buses, sales tax exemption for ammunition, and arming our teachers. And as state senator, I'll continue to advocate for common sense gun law.
Thank you very much. Tiffany, what gun laws would you support?
I would support gun laws that make, first of all, it's too many minors that's walking around that have firearms, and that just don't make sense to me. I understand that, people need guns for protection, our Second Amendment right. Nobody's trying to take your firearms from you as a responsible adult. However, if children are going to the shooting ranges and hunting and things like that with their parents and it's education, that's okay. But however, with the things that's going on in the communities, with the suicide, with the shootings, with the gun violence, we need stricter gun laws as far as to who the guns are going into the hands of, because it makes no sense that 12-year-olds are walking around with AR-15s. Like, that just don't make sense. So we need to have gun laws that make sense. And also with domestic violence, you can get a gun with the misdemeanor in domestic violence. Why? And so we just need to we need to strengthen our gun laws.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Barbara?
I'm glad you pointed out the Star article. So I want to further talk about that statistic, and that is in predominantly our rural communities. So where our gun violence in urban core comes in the form of homicide and other crimes, the gun usage for deaths are predominantly suicides in our rural communities. I think one thing we need to do is strengthen our laws with respect to minors holding guns, because we currently do not have a state law that prevents a minor from having a gun. And that is something that I have filed for several years, and we just haven't been able to get it across the border. We thought with some of the school shootings, we would be able to do that. So I think what we need to do is we need to realize that guns kill people, and people that have guns kill people. And we need to come together as both parties and realize what's best for Missourians. Because if if all our teenagers are dying, we need to see what the underlying facts are as to why they want to kill themselves, why they have such accessibility to guns, and work on a solution that will stop those guns.
Thank you. Patty Mansour.
You know, there was a time when household accidents were the highest cause of child death, but now the highest cause of child death is actually by gun violence. And that's the case across the United States, and it is the case in Missouri. I have family members who are hunters and avid hunters, but they participate in safe storage, they have training, etc. I think we are missing the mark if we do not require background checks for gun purchases. And that I agree with the position on red flag laws. We need to be able to identify when there is a danger or risk to a family member, and there needs to be a measure to step in and make sure that the person who is creating the potential danger, does not have access to firearms.
Thank you. Duran?
So I actually was shot 2 times in my head, and I grew up around all different types of guns, and the understanding that it's the gun that's actually the problem, in my mind, of course, it just doesn't make sense. My grandfather came from Arkansas, McGee, Arkansas, rural area down in Arkansas, and came to Kansas City. He taught us how to use guns at 9 years old. He gave guns to all of my aunts and even to my mother when they graduated high school. So guns have always been around, but the guns aren't the problem. It's the culture that comes along that's the problem. And even with the increase that we're starting to see in suicides, there are other factors that are really taking place within the society and within our communities that really don't have anything to do with you taking the guns away. In my opinion, once you start taking people's guns away, you're just creating other problems that you'll have to eventually, try to solve.
Thank you. Joey?
Yep. So I think the most critical point that you said about the guns is the suicide. So, yep, I think that guns are, I'm a gun owner. I think that having a gun is okay. I know it, I study it, I take care of it. I think that the suicide prevention is the most important piece, right? So I would defer that to mental health. The gun, I don't think, is the problem. I think that I've done some studies that even in France, where they don't have guns, they still have a high suicide rate. So I would think that we just really need to focus on the technology and criteria of mental health awareness, and focus more on that, and then really solve that problem, right? So solve the problem of mental health, and therefore we can reduce that number of gun problems, gun violence, gun suicides.
Thank you. And Anthony?
Thank you. Yeah, the most important part is the suicides. That is the most important part for many reasons. One, it's a mental health issue. And I think whether it's suicide or homicide, it's always a mental health issue. On the other hand, that statistic likes to be, it's used in the media to convince people that don't understand what the real numbers are, that it's a gun problem when it's really a mental health issue. Now, again, where I stand on protecting our people's rights, I have to go to what she's covered, I don't know her name, the red flag laws. They are not only a Second Amendment infringement, but they are a Fourth Amendment infringement because you do not have the right to go into anyone's property, private property, and take anyone's property or do anything without the highest standard called a judge's warrant. So we're not letting just anybody into our homes, and you're not going to come take our guns. And lastly, I'm going to say this. In the Marlboro community, I got to speak with a lot of great people there. I believe that's your neighborhood, Tiffany. They had like 3 murders that week when I went there, and they had a cop on Zoom. And I asked that gentleman what the ages of the shooters were. They said 15 to 18. Those are
Thank you
kids.
very much. You're well past your
That's
time.
illegal federally. It's illegal. It's already a crime. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Duran, you're going to be up for the next question. Missouri is one of 26 states which allow citizens to amend the Constitution by an initiative petition. Currently, an initiative petition will pass with a simple majority vote after a sufficient number of supporting signatures have been gathered. Efforts in the legislature to raise the threshold fell short this year. Would you support making it more difficult to change the Constitution through the initiative petition? Why or why not?
So I remember in school studying the Missouri Constitution. It was probably a quarter of an inch smaller. Now it's like 2 inches thicker. And one of the ways that the Constitution continues to grow and grow and grow is because folks from out of town, out of state, who have these ideas about how different ideologies should play a part in politics, they have come to the state. They spend tons of money in St. Louis, Kansas City, Cape Girardeau, and maybe down in Springfield, and they concentrate all those resources in those areas for the initiative and petition, and they don't actually campaign anywhere else when it comes to certain issues. And one of the things that you've seen, or I've definitely seen it, is that the Constitution will just continuously grow because there are just too many resources being spent in the populated areas, which basically leaves the rural areas completely ignored. So yes, I would do whatever I can to have initiative petition reform.
Thank you. Patty Lewis?
I support the initiative petition process as it is, with a simple majority and one person, one vote. Unfortunately, the majority party in the government is failing Missourians, and the IP process allows them to take action on issues that are important to them, such as Medicaid expansion. And I would like to thank Senator Washington and the Senate Democrats for their record-breaking filibuster this past session to save the IP process and one person, one vote, to allow the citizens of Missouri to vote and restore reproductive health care this upcoming election.
Thank you. Anthony?
This is a great question. I stand behind reforming IP only because it is historically, it's an American tradition that we have checks and balances. We're not a straight democracy, even though everyone loves to say that we're a democracy. We're not. We're representative governments. Everyone here is getting elected by a democratic style, but we are representatives that go to Congress to make decisions. This way we're doing with the Congress, or with the Constitution, Missouri Constitution, is a straight democracy that gives no say to the middle of Missouri. You got St. Louis and you got Kansas City and maybe other major cities making decisions for the entire state, when really the entire state made the decision who represents them in Congress. We have to go back to our foundational principles, and that is a good way to start with IP reform.
Thank you. Tiffany?
For me, I think it needs to stay how it is. Let the people decide, let the people choose, and just move forward like that.
Thank you. Joey?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with the reform, right? So I love the idea in principle. It is a great idea to have the people voice their opinions and petitions and make things stronger, better, faster. But it just slows down the process, I think. You're creating unnecessary petitions, you're creating unnecessary things. And so I'm all for kind of reforming that right now.
Thank you. Patty Mansour?
I support the initiative petition process as it stands today. It's a way for voters to have a direct engagement and democracy and take action on the things and advance the issues that they want to see happen. If they are wholly reliant on the legislature, which for the last several years has ended in gridlock, comes almost, up to the moment of dismissal and can't get things done. This is a way for Missourians to push forward things like Medicaid expansion, which has been a powerful benefit to Missouri. The minimum wage increase that happened in 2018. And also more recently legalizing cannabis and decriminalizing that for people who use recreational marijuana and medicinal marijuana. I think that it's important. Yes, it is costly and it is time consuming, but this is the way that Missourians can be a part in the direction the government takes.
Thank you. And Barbara?
I support it the way it is, and thank God that the Constitution can be changed, both the U.S. Constitution and the Missouri Constitution, because without amendments, myself and Mr. Black wouldn't be here. We would still be working on a farm, and neither would Ms. Price. So I appreciate the fact that we are able as citizens to say what we want, especially when we send those representatives to do the jobs that we ask them to do, and they don't do it. Missourians have shown that they appreciate the IP process the way it is because they vote for those things. Medicaid expansion wasn't for Kansas City, St. Louis, Columbia, and Springfield. It was for those in the rural communities that lost all of their hospitals, like everyone in my family who lives in Saline County who has one hospital left that's getting ready to close. So without that, you're either going to change things by IP reform or lawsuits. Lawsuits are costly and take a long time. IP reform is the best and most efficient way for the citizens' voices to actually be heard.
Thank you very much. Anthony, you'll be the first one to answer the next question. In 1992, riverboat gambling was approved by Missouri voters partly because tax monies would go to support schools. We now know that it is instead of state funds rather than in addition to state funds. Amendment 2, which will be on the November ballot, asks voters to support sports betting, with the taxes generated going to support education, including primary, secondary, and higher education. Will these taxes be used the same way or be in addition to support from the general fund?
Well, I'm hoping it doesn't pass personally. I don't think there's much need for more gambling in Missouri. I think it's addiction. It could cause addiction. It could cause families to break apart. I think it can cause a lot of issues to a lot of people who are down and out right now. I think there's a lot of people that could use it to try and get out of a hole that, our economy has kind of put everybody in. But at the end of the day, we've already had a tax or revenue going to schools from lotteries. I can't remember when it was passed, but I can tell you that the schools have not gotten any better. So I don't understand how we can continuously think that we're just going to keep throwing money at the schools and think that it's going to make any difference. We're not going to fix anything by just throwing money at it and trying to make people feel better about it because they can get something like sports betting out of it or a new casino down in the Ozarks or whatever it is. It doesn't make any sense if it's not really doing any good for the kids.
Thank you. Patty Lewis.
Yeah, so with this issue, I'm like many out there that I'm undecided on how to vote. I've seen arguments on both sides of the issue on how the revenue will be collected and spent. And I think it's a good question on where the money will be spent, and it will be up to the legislature to allocate it to the schools in addition to general revenue. I think ultimately the question needs to be for voters: do you want to legalize sports betting here in the state of Missouri? In SD7 here in Kansas City, we have folks going across the state line to place their sports bets. Over on the other side of the state, folks are going to Illinois to place bets. So I think it really just comes down to whether or not you want to legalize sports betting here in the state of Missouri. Regardless of the outcome, as state senator, I will uphold the will of the voter on this issue and all ballot issues that are coming up this November.
Thank you very much. Duran?
Yeah, so I'm kind of, torn on this issue. I don't participate in any gambling myself, but I also, do cringe when I hear that any type of resources is being taken out of the state and given to another state. So I understand that the language is in there for the resources to be used towards education and schooling. So, Anthony has already made the statement about, the funding going to schools. So that's one that I have yet to make up my mind on. So I guess I don't have a real answer for you at this time.
Okay, fair enough. Barbara?
So I'm a little conflicted as well. However, I will support it because it's not just Kansas and Illinois. As we all know, Missouri is bordered by 8 states, and half of them have sports betting, as well as Mississippi, which we don't really touch, but you just go 10 miles outside of the Boot Hill and you're pretty much in Mississippi. I don't want to see those revenues leave. I do believe that having lottery funds and having funds that will be dedicated to education does help. I can't say Mr. Anthony's last name because it provides us an opportunity. Well, first of all, let's be clear. Education is primarily financed locally, not statewide. But it does provide us an opportunity to use resources that we do have in the state for something else if we have some dedicated funds to education. We already have gambling here. We have casinos. So sports betting is not going to increase the number of people gambling. I would like to make sure that sports betting gives us more jobs, but that would be my biggest concern.
Thank you. Patty Mansour.
I share some of the feelings of confliction about Amendment 2. We know that supporters want to see the sports betting pass because all these neighboring states have it now, and there's an opportunity for Missouri to draw upon those resources. I am not opposed to us doing that, but the part that is troublesome for me is there is no guarantee about the level of revenues or how revenues will come to education. That's very unclear at this time. And a lot of times we dangle these new initiatives out as the monies will come to education. And most often it rarely does.
Thank you. Joey?
Yeah, I can go ahead and be for certain. I'll be for certain on this one. So I think it's absolutely. So in the District 7, we're close to Kansas. I have friends, family, people I don't know. They just drive 2 minutes to Kansas, and that is lost revenue, plain and simple. So in Kansas, since September of 22, that's been about $18.25 million. Absolutely would rather give that to Kansas or Missouri. So that is pretty definite for me, that I think that it is a good revenue stream so that it's a less tax burden that has to be on the rest of us, right? So gamble, don't gamble. I don't really care about that, but if the public as a whole doesn't have to pay as much taxes for something, then I'm all for it. So I believe wholeheartedly in it.
Thank you. Tiffany?
So for me, I support it as far as the money coming to Missouri because, like everybody said, people are going to gamble and the money is going elsewhere. However, I am conflicted as far as if it is passed, where the money will go. Would I want it to go to education? Absolutely, because we need to pour more into the teachers to make sure the teachers are okay to make sure that the students are okay. And so absolutely, I support it only for the benefits of Missouri. So just figuring out where the money is going exactly is my concern, but passing the bill, absolutely, I support it.
Thank you. And Patty Manser, you'll be answering first for this next question. There are 6 ballot measures on the November 5th ballot. 2 are constitutional amendments sponsored by the legislature. The next 2 questions concern these amendments. Amendment 6 would impose a $3 fee in every circuit court criminal case, which would go towards funding retirement benefits for sheriffs and other court personnel. In 2021, the Supreme Court rejected this approach as unconstitutional, saying that those fees are not reasonably related to administration of justice. What is your position on Amendment 6?
I don't support Amendment 6. I understand that there needs to be some mechanism to fund the retirements of law enforcement, sheriffs, circuit attorneys, but I don't believe that levying fees in the sort of quote administration of justice is an appropriate way to do so. It has a greater negative impact on lower income individuals and individuals who may find themselves in court frequently, sometimes due to fees and fines and things that they can't get ahead of. So I don't think that's the appropriate way to fund the needs of law enforcement.
Thank you. Barbara Washington.
So I'm the only lawyer in the building. So this is the one that kind of conflicts me because as someone who has worked for the court, worked for a judge, have lots of friends that still work in the court system and in the sheriff's department, I know that they are underpaid and I know that they are highly overworked. And so I want to see them be able to increase their salaries. However, I don't want that burden to be on our defendants who are already criminal defendants who already suffer a lot from being able to reestablish their rights because they can't pay restitution or probation fees or whatever the case may be. Many people don't know that we add a lot of those fees all the time when you file lawsuits. And we just did that a few years ago, that we added, I think, $3 for each lawsuit that is filed as a way to help with the administration of the courts. So I am conflicted on this, but I know we have to do something to keep the good people that we have working for our court system.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Yes, so I support what Senator Barbara Ann said. I would love for them to retire. However, court fees have been a barrier in the Black and Brown community for so long. I don't think that that is the way for it to go, just with all the other things that come along with the criminal justice system when it comes to the Black and Brown community. So no, I don't think that the court fees need to be, actually there's something else needs to be done about the court fees, and I don't think that it should go towards the retirement, but however, we need to come up with the another solution for the retirement, but not with the court fees.
Thank you. Patty Lewis.
Yeah, first of all, I support law enforcement, and we need to support our law enforcement retirees with a reliable funding stream that is not tied up with the ebbs and flows of court cases. This amendment creates unreliable funding mechanisms, and I did not support it when it came before the full body in the House.
Thank you. Anthony?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. The cost and the fees associated with going to court is already too burdensome for most defendants. Most people that are doing crime are doing it because they're down and out, so they're not going to have the money to pay for that fee. I do think that our law enforcement need a good retirement. They deserve it. They have a hard job to do, but it cannot be at the cost of the people.
Thank you. Duran?
Yeah, I think Anthony gave a perfect answer, so I won't take up too much time, and I'll disagree with Anthony.
Fair enough. Joey,
Yeah, so clearly I don't like fees for the people. So I'm gonna have to agree that this one's a no-go. I think that having it becomes a little, so the unconstitutionalness of it is that it also becomes we should be chasing these fees as a like a debtor jail, right? And so I disagree with that. I think that still is unconstitutional. And but we do need to figure out a way to pay for these the retirement, right? So we do need to figure out some stable way to do that. But it is not with these fees.
thank you. And Joey, you're up first for this next question, which
Sure.
involves Amendment 7.
Amendment
Amendment
7. Okay.
7, also proposed by the legislature, is a two-parter. It would forbid ranked choice voting, which is essentially a means of having an instant runoff election in which there are multiple candidates. It also states that only US citizens would be allowed to vote, which is already the law in every state, including Missouri. What's your position on Amendment 7?
Yeah, so I'm for Amendment 7, right? So you know, only US citizens voting. I get it. It's already out there, but you know, I think that in the time of where we're at today, it's very important. Plus the ranked voting, I think that it's one vote, one person, one vote. And there is no ranked choice there. That shouldn't be anywhere in existence in my mind. So I'm a firm believer that this one's a yes, and it's right for democracy.
Thank you. Patty Lewis?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it's already illegal. It's federal law and state law, and it's illegal for non-citizens to vote, which I of course support. However, putting this on the ballot is only confusing the voters since it's already against the law. What we really need to look at with this is the ranked choice voting issue and the tie that this is a direct attack on local control and St. Louis. St. Louis adopted a version of ranked choice voting for their local elections, which was voted by St. Louis City citizens. So, you know, why, you know, if we support local control, why do we have to create this statewide ban against ranked choice voting if the folks in St. Louis are happy with their version?
Thank you. Duran?
I definitely will, vote yes on the is it the amendment. It can't be stressed enough that citizens of the United States should be the only ones allowed to vote, and I don't think that the ranked choice system is appropriate for Missouri.
Thank you. Barbara?
I'll be voting no on it because I agree with Patty, with Ms. Lewis, that this is really a direct attack on St. Louis and something they had chosen to do with their local elections. The other part is ballot candy. You already have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to be a Missouri resident. You got to be 18 in the Constitution in the U.S., in the Constitution of Missouri. We fought that on some IP stuff. We kind of missed it on this. I'll take, some fault on that. However, ranked choice voting is very confusing. And I think one of the places that used it in the last 5 or 6 years, I think was some parts of New York. And it took them a few months to get their actual election resolved. And we shouldn't be doing that to the voters. So it's not something that I'm in favor in at this time.
Thank you. Anthony?
I'll be voting yes on the amendment. I do not think that ranked choice voting is a good idea for our system. We've had a one person, one vote system. It works. It's all got checks and balances to it. I do not think that there's a real need to add the U.S. citizens voting, because again, it's already illegal for non-citizens to vote. But I have heard that non-citizens could vote in local elections when it regarding school board or something to that effect when they have children who may be citizens in the school district. I might be mistaken on that, but that might be what this is for. Either way, I'll be voting yes.
Thank you. Tiffany?
It's enough for me. I believe the federal laws and the state laws is there for a reason. Leave it as it is. One person, one vote is worked this far. So, what's the point of changing it? However, I think if St. Louis or any other city decided to, if that's the way that they wanted to go with more education and maybe explaining it better, then, they can go how they choose. But for the most part, I really don't think nothing needs to change.
Thank you. And Patty Manser?
I think Amendment 7 is poorly constructed, and it puts in two different elements that don't belong together. We've already all discussed, we all understand, I think, on this forum that non-citizens cannot vote. So I think that's already resolved. And then as to ranked choice, if Missourians are interested in that, then I think they should have the opportunity to voice that. But in fact, this legislation should not be on the ballot at this time in its current form.
Thank you very much. Tiffany Price, you're going to be up first for this next question. Do you support Amendment 3, the Right to Reproductive Freedom Initiative? And will you commit to upholding the will of the voters if it passes?
I absolutely support it. I feel that nobody should be able to tell anybody else what to do with their bodies. And once it is passed, I will do everything in my power to make sure that it goes how it needs to go. So yes, I support it.
Thank you. Patty Manser?
I support Amendment 3. I believe strongly that state governments should not get in between women and the decisions they make with their medical provider. I think there are a range of complex healthcare issues that happen with women that might necessitate decisions that might not be the decision that all of us would like to make, but I don't believe we should interfere in that. I've heard a lot of people on the front doors as I've been knocking doors in House District 25, and they strongly want to see Amendment 3 pass.
Thank you. Joey?
Sure. Yep. I think that this is a extremely personal thing, and I will support however the people vote. As everybody has their own story. I have my own story. Everybody else has their own story. So I would just simply ask people to educate themselves on the amendment. Now, I will differentiate myself. I do not support state-funded programs for abortions. So, if you want money from the government, I think that that's a no for me. We shouldn't give them that financial control or of information. So I think that, but I will support the opposite side of it, right? So I will support foster care, adoption, after school care. I'll support those kinds of things. But as far as if you don't want the business, the government being in the business, then no financial pieces as well.
Thank you. Ron Black, what's your position?
So I think it's 100% true that the government should not be involving itself in your healthcare decisions, and that the extreme, in my opinion, on either side is just completely invalid. So I do think that there is a fine middle that could be potentially looked at, but the way that the language is put forward on the ballot, I will not be voting for Amendment 3.
Thank you. Barbara Ann Washington?
I wholeheartedly support Amendment 3. I agree with the gentleman, and I'm glad they acknowledge that the government should not be telling women what to do with their bodies. I do want to point out that the Hyde Amendment federally prevents any government funding from paying for any abortions. Right now, what we have in Missouri is women who are not allowed to get abortions except for in the case of saving a mother's life, which has been so controversial for the fear of our physicians thinking that they're going to get charged with a crime, that we are at the lowest point that we have been at for having OBGYN residents want to come to the state of Missouri. North of Cameron, Missouri, we don't have any OBGYNs up there. And again, my family's rural, so I spend a lot of time in the country. Until we regulate a man's body, we should stay away from regulating a woman's.
Thank you. Patty Lewis?
100% yes on 3. You know, the majority party's Republican led abortion ban without any exception for rape or incest has gone too far. As Patty Manser mentioned, it's the #1 issue I hear on the doors from men, women, seniors, you name it. You know, I 100% support reproductive freedom, access for safe legal abortions, access to birth control, IVF. And, you know, because of my stance, I'm the only candidate in this race who's been endorsed by our reproductive groups like Abortion Access Missouri, Access Mo, Planned Parenthood, Greater Kansas City Women's Political Caucus. And, you know, this being the #1 issue, who better to have in your corner than a pro-choice nurse? And I think the second point to your question is voters need to understand if who they're electing will respect the will of the voter and try not to overturn this, because we're hearing from many Republicans, they're already talking about overturning it.
Thank you. And Anthony?
I'm gonna say straight up that I'm a Christian and I don't support abortions for my religious beliefs. And it's hard for me to believe that any other Christian could support an abortion. I am endorsed by Missouri Right to Life. It's the only endorsement I have, and I take it with great respect that they would trust that I would protect the innocent lives that are not being born. On a more principled step, because we're not talking about medical procedures, we're talking about a right we're going to put in the Constitution. So this right that the Missouri government is creating is only going to have a right of choice for some Americans, not all Americans. So when did we start making rights for some Americans and not all Americans? That is not how this country works. We have rights for all Americans, not for some Americans. If you want the right to choose whether or not you're going to kill your baby or not, you better understand that that right cannot be for only one person. You have control over your DNA, not the DNA of the baby.
Thank you. Well, we're coming up on our 2-minute closing statements, but before we get to that, I'd like to give everybody the opportunity to come up with a question you wish I'd asked and tell us what the answer to it is. And we're going to start with Deron Black.
Wow, that is man, I think I got stumped on that one. I got so used to asking the questions. Well, I guess why didn't you ask about what the state should be doing to make sure that the Chiefs and the Royals stay in Missouri? I thought the stadium question would come up, and I would say that, you know, considering that the Chiefs Stadium and the Royal Stadium are both in the district, we should do all that we can to make sure that we, you know, maintain those assets. The economic benefit from either one of those teams is pretty significant, and we definitely should think about ways to maintaining the teams without offending folks and actually, you know, getting rid of things that actually people want to salvage, which was the case for the last election round. So that's one of the things that I thought that you would have asked, and that was my answer.
Thank you very much. Anthony, what's your question?
I like to say thank you for this because it's a stumper. I don't know of a question. Maybe what new technologies are of interest to the candidates for Missouri? I would say that the artificial general intelligence is something that we really need to get on to. It could be a useful tool or a dangerous tool, depending on how we use it or don't use it, how we regulate it or don't regulate it. Again, with blockchain technology, with just the technology behind the crypto industry, not necessarily the funding and the potential money laundering that happens with it, but the freedom of your own banking that comes with it, and just those types of technologies that could really jumpstart our state.
Thank you. Patty Lewis.
I would say the question that I wish you would have asked is, what's it like being the only registered nurse in the entire General Assembly? And I would say, great question. Yes, I'm currently the only registered nurse in the entire General Assembly. I will be the first registered nurse to serve in the Senate in the history of our state. And hundreds of bills, healthcare bills, are filed every single session. And we have people who have never set foot in a hospital or clinic making healthcare decisions that impact our families, our livelihoods. And, we've got a healthcare crisis on our hands. Every county in the state of Missouri, except for one, is a healthcare desert. We have OBGYNs leaving the country because of the total abortion ban. We have a mental health crisis in our state. So it is absolutely critical to have a nurse's voice remain in Jefferson City down in the state Senate.
Thank you. Tiffany Price?
Yes, one question that I wish would have been asked was about violence overall, because yes, gun violence is important, but it's also sexual violence, it's also domestic violence, it's also financial violence. So it's not just gun violence. Some of these other violences actually lead up to gun violence. And so just something more about violence, period, not just gun violence.
Okay. Patty Mansour.
I think a question I wish you had asked is how, and it's a little bit off like where you were before, but what is the approach to helping address some of the mental health crisis in the state of Missouri? And I think that the way I would answer part of that question is, one factor is there's an opportunity and a necessity to improve the state's Medicaid and social service systems so that eligible children and adults who should be receiving Medicaid services, mental health services, and child nutrition and other social services get access to those. Missouri has made a name for itself nationally for Medicaid systems and food and nutrition systems that kick people out of the system. There has been the federal government has had to step in and provide guidance and direction repeatedly to have Missouri fix that situation that leaves eligible people out of care.
Thank you. And Barbara Ann Washington.
Ooh, I wish you would have asked, how do I function in a super minority? And I would say that I'm able to function in a super minority because my family is from the country. And I understood that walking in the door 7 years ago, that it was important for me to make relationships. And I think I've been very successful at making relationships on both sides of the aisle, and understanding that I don't need a pat on my own back. I just need my legislation to go through. I walked in the door with my number one priority was juvenile justice reform. And I don't think we have anything left to do. We raised the age to 18 to be certified to be tried as an adult. This year, I raised the age to 14 before you can even file a petition. And we moved all of our juveniles out of our adult prison back into into juvenile prisons. So only way you're able to do that is work on both sides of the aisle.
Thank you very much. Joey LaSalle, what's your question?
Yeah, I think that it would be closely related to crime. So why is crime so bad here in Kansas City? Why is it growing exponentially? What should we do about it? And I think that it is having a firm relationship or a relationship with the city, with the county on creating laws and best practices so that we can actually create some change here in Kansas City. So I don't think that we're actually doing anything. I think that some of the things that we've done are just not successful. Programs aren't successful. I think that we need to invest in the police. We need to do things for Kansas City. And I think that having a relationship to solve the problem is the best thing for us to do.
Thank you very much. Candidates, this has been a really special forum. I really want to thank you all for coming and for your answers to the questions. I want to personally thank you for joining us tonight. And in addition, we'd ask that you share the League's website with voters and encourage all citizens to show up on each election day and exercise their right to vote. And now it's time for your 2-minute closing remarks. And we'll start with Barbara Ann Washington.
Thank you. Thank you for having all of us today and for your continued involvement in civic engagement and advocacy. We appreciate the League of Women Voters and your fight to help us keep democracy going. My 2 minutes are not even going to be a full 2 minutes. I've been in Jefferson City for 7 years. I've been on appropriations for 6 of those 7 years. I have been extremely successful in bringing financial resources back to this community. I have said it many times. I've brought back more than $250 million to Jackson County to help us out. I have created grants that have never been created before, like our urban agriculture grant, as well as our urban agriculture tax credit. I have worked on criminal justice reform. I have worked on healthcare issues, and I have made sure to not only do what we do in the building, but establish those relationships to get those organizations and folks to help our community in other ways, like twice a year when I feed over 600 families and give them a month's worth of food. Make sure that we have the cattlemen involved, the soybean, the corn growers, making sure that I'm the best person to go back. I think my opponent mentioned something about 18th and Vine. I've given 18th and Vine over $50 million in the last 7 years and made sure that 18th and Vine is our gym and looks better today than it did 7 years ago. Like with the Buck O'Neill Center, I made sure that that was remodeled. Like 19 Vine Apartments, I helped make sure that those apartments were built. Like the new developments that are going on now. So you want to have somebody that goes down there, that knows what they're doing, that is respected by everybody in the building, and that can get the work done. I'm that person. I am proud and humble and blessed to be able to serve the community that I made a decision to come back home to after I graduated from college. My parents have been here for 70 years. So I've watched a lot change, and I want to see the glory of what my brothers and sisters used to talk about, and that's why I need to go back.
Thank you very much. Anthony?
Thank you for putting this forum on. It was very awesome to see everybody and hear everybody's opinions on things. Even if we don't agree, I love it. I love debates. I love talking to people. I just want to let the voters know that I am not a politician. I'm not looking to make friends. I'm not looking to gain any kind of power. I'm not looking for any kind of wealth. I was called to do this because I feel my country that I fought for in the Ranger Regiment is falling apart from the inside. And honestly, that is the only way this great country will ever fall, is when we, the people, allow it to be destroyed from the inside out. Now, I know the path to hell is paved in gold. And I know everyone that makes a great position about making something less freedom for the greater good, it's a good concept. But at the end of the day, our country has to survive this nonsense. And I will go to Jeff City and fight all of the nonsense when it comes down to destroying our checks and balances, our traditions, our Constitution, whether it be federal or state. We have to protect our republic. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Deron Black?
Yeah, yes, of course, thank you for having us. This was very engaging, very thought-provoking. And I really appreciate all the things that the senator said. And one of the things that I would like to do is I would actually like for her to maybe even think about, considering the Republican Party. The times when she speaks about, her family and when they spoke about the communities, our communities were Republican. And one of the values that comes along with being Republican is self-sufficient and self-sustaining. If we don't get back to a community that is not so dependent on government resources, then we're basically spinning our wheels. And that's what I would like to see happen. I would like to see a major economic shift in the condition of the district. I would like to see more families start to realize, just like the senator did, that there's more value staying in Kansas City than moving out of Kansas City. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I'm definitely committed to doing that work. And I definitely want to see a lot of change happen within the district and within the community, and a lot more needs to be done. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Patty Lewis.
Yes, thank you so much for organizing this forum. I just, the same reason I decided to run for office initially is the same reason I decided to become a nurse, because I want to help people and I believe in service. I'm the only candidate in this race who's been elected, serving down in Jefferson City, down in the trenches for the past 4 years. And I'm proud of the work I've been able to accomplish. As a member of the super minority, my freshman year, I was able to pass mental health parity to address the mental health crisis in our state. Also extending postpartum coverage from 6 months to a year to address the maternal mortality rate in this state. I have a proven track record of getting things done. I have great relationships on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers, and I'll be able to get to work for the people of Missouri in the Senate on day number 1. This election is critical. I want to encourage all the listeners out there to make your plan to vote. Print out the ballot. We covered a lot of the questions, but it's a 2-pager ballot, so be sure to do your homework and flip over the ballot sheet. Encourage your friends and family and neighbors to vote. I also want to let people know that it's not too late to volunteer. You can get involved with campaigns, volunteer with Jackson County Democrats, as well as Missouri Constitutional for Freedom. And please visit my website, pattyformo.com, pattyformo.com, not to be confused with the other Patty. And I hope I can earn your vote on November 5th. It's been an honor serving you all in the State House, and it will be an honor to continue to serve you as your next state senator.
Thank you very much. Joey LaSalle.
Yep, thank you very much for putting this on. I appreciate it. So, Joey LaSalle, I've lived in the district for 17 years. I'm not a politician, but I am a frustrated resident by the lack of real representation of Kansas City. I think that we can all agree Kansas City is the most important city in Missouri, yet we're continually overlooked. Our district Senate and House representatives in Jefferson City accomplished little to nothing. And instead of setting the tone for the state of Kansas City, or for the state, Kansas City just accepts what we're giving, and we deserve a lot more. So as your state senator, I'll ensure that our voices are actually heard and actually acted upon. I believe that my education, resume, life lessons make me the only candidate equipped to be your District 7 senator. I believe in hard work, good jobs, less taxes, less government, and strict on crime. I'm for hands up, not handouts, and I know that real progress comes with economic prosperity. While we may not agree on everything, I can promise my core issues, I'm focused on the ones that matter most, and I won't have to struggle working across the aisle. So I have 20 years of leadership experience at Cerner, managing everything from small rural hospital programs to billion-dollar VA programs, leading hundreds of people. As a CFO and COO of a small business, I understand that it takes to run an organization and financial challenges. With an honors degree in finance and real estate, I know how economics, taxes, inflation work, and I'm committed to fighting tax fairness in the city state, and county level. But crime reduction is the most important to me, as it is the rest of the residents of the district. Safety is a basic human right that is not Democratic or Republican. I support strong policing, strict prosecution, and decisive action. We need real solutions, no more programs.
Thank you very much. Tiffany Price.
I just want to say thank you for having this. Thank you for inviting me. It has been very informative. I just want to get straight to the point. I'm a person that has grew up in Kansas City. I'm not rich. I'm not wealthy. I come from this side of truth. I have lived experience, and who is better to go and fight in Jefferson City other than someone who has been in the same situations as some of the people in District 26, and also might be still be going through some of the same issues as the people in District 26. And so I'm excited to go down there and be the voice. If you don't have a voice, or if you need help with your voice, I'm happy to go down there and serve you. So that's it.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Patty Manson.
Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters, and I hope lots and lots of people watch this video over and over again. I'm running for the Missouri House because I'm very passionate about Kansas City. I wasn't born in Kansas City, but I've lived here over 3 decades, and I consider this city home. I recognize a lot of the problems and challenges with public safety, with poverty, with young people needing opportunities, but I don't approach it from a position of despair. I approach it from a stance of opportunity. What can we do to lift up families and young people? Because we need them. We cannot overlook the lives of the children and youth in this community if we're going to have a thriving city ongoing. I ran for the Kansas City School Board and I served 7 years. My children were all educated in the Kansas City public schools. That wasn't a sacrifice on my part. That was about being a citizen of this city and having my children be educated in the schools and the community in which I live. I have had public services run through my veins, I think, ever since. I bring policy experience to this role, both education and health policy. My work on the school board taught me about governance and goal setting and collaboration, because when you have 7 people who come together on a school board with differing perspectives and attitudes about how school systems should run, your skills in diplomacy and consensus building have to come into play. I'm ready to work across the aisle. I'm ready to learn from my colleagues. And I take great pride in, and I'm deeply impressed at the talent and the leadership and the skills of the elected officials who have already come before me, and I will lean on them. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you for joining us tonight and sharing your views. I'm going to turn things back over to Anitra.
Thank you, candidates, and thank you, audience, for your interest in the November election. A recording of this forum will be available on the League's website, lwvkc.org. Please take a moment to share our forums via your Facebook, Nextdoor, and other social media channels. And remember, for voting and candidate information, visit lwvkc.org and vote411.org. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.